It is February 4th, 2025. This is our 5 p.m. Board of Education meeting. We're going to start by indicating who's here. Clark, will you start?
Clark Nelson.
Karen Winder.
Chris Wynn.
Connie Burgess.
Kim Chandler.
Julie Jackson.
Todd Hubbard.
Ben Horsley.
And Nicole McDermott. We're going to begin by inviting Dr. Wilson up and going over our land trust information.
Thank you, Board. Superintendent, glad to be here. So today I'll be discussing the final report from the previous fiscal year and giving you a brief update for what we know about Constitutional Amendment B. So when we talk about a final report, we're looking back in the most recent fiscal year. That was 23-24. At that year, Granite received a little over $8.2 million, and we worked with our schools to make sure that they've appropriately completed their requirements in their final report. Those are available for you to review, and I'll show you how to log in and access those shortly. Just a point of celebration. So I received a spreadsheet of all of the schools in the state to see if they received any sanction. Now, a sanction would come if you did not spend more than 90% of your allocation, and Granite was one of 5 districts without any sanctions, and we're the only large district to meet this compliance measure. So that's a huge effort from our L&I directors, my staff. So we use the land trust funding effectively and well, and we're one of the few districts that do so. Alrighty, so if you were to go to this site, board members, you would see a prompt that looks like this. You would log in, and if you need technical assistance, my executive secretary, Rebecca Johnson, can help you. There you would go to this screen. You'd see so many links, and you can at any time view previous plans, if there's any amendments, upcoming plans, but the part that's we're inviting you to look at soon is this final report. And you'll see that it's completed for every school. And again, if you need technical assistance logging in, we're happy to help you with that. Now, what the site does not do really well, it's not awesome in terms of telling you at a quick glance how many schools met their goals. So what we've done is we've aggregated that for you for elementary, junior high, and high school, and these next 4 slides. And so if we look at our elementary schools, the 56 or so, they set a total of 157 goals. So how did our elementary schools do in meeting their academic goals? Well, 30 of those 157 goals were met, or roughly 19.11%. And then when it says partially, they made strides but didn't quite do it. 24 academic goals, they did not make any progress. And then when it says NA, they realized somewhere during the year they had new access to, or new data that said, you know what, we need to shift our goal entirely and start a new goal. So that happened in some cases. We also, as part of the continuing improvement planning process, invite schools quarterly to note if they believe that they are on track, if the action items that they identified were such and they believe that they're implementing to reach their goal. And this was interesting, and this held true at all levels. Schools have a higher, or they believe that they are on track to reaching their goals more than they actually are. Or in other words, that when they take the summative assessments, they're expecting to do a little bit better. So this was instructive for us to look at, to realize that we need to help them do a better job tracking more accurately and giving them more predictive measures. So this is the elementary summary, and then we see junior high. Of the 15 junior high schools, there were 36 academic goals set, and the percentages fell out very similarly among all 3 levels. And again, we see that they report by and large that they're they're going to meet their goals, but when it comes time to summative assessments, that they only meet about 22% of their academic goals. And then we see high schools right here. So what you're able to do with your access is to go into each individual school, and you'll see their goals, their action items. They assert whether they have implemented it with fidelity, and then they give a little narrative to say, you know, did they meet their goal? What was it? What were they striving for, and what was the actual? As a different way of looking at it, we analyzed what types of goals are they setting. So the 8 high schools, 2/3 of them set a goal for graduation rate increase. And then when it comes to RISE, or when it says UA Plus, that means Utah Aspire Plus. We were curious to see whether schools were setting academic goals relative to proficiency or increase or growth. And we see the breakdown here. 80% of elementaries set proficiency growth on RISE, and then junior high split evenly, and they're setting goals for both. And we see the breakdown here where in elementary school, they're setting less goals on growth and more proficiency. And then to explain this bottom row here, elementary schools, most of them are setting rise, proficiency, increase growth to the tune of 1 to 3%. And some are shooting for higher with 4 to 6% and then 7 to 10%. And they're setting more modest goals when it comes to mathematics. And then I just have to laugh here. So with the high schools, we had one school set like a 20% increase goal, and that was Tyler Howe at Granger. So he's always shooting for the stars. So this is and so just the last slide about land trust, more talking about the fiscal side of things. The total of funding available to schools this next fiscal year will be $8.7 million. You'll notice as we look at the 3 fiscal years, 24, 25, 26, we increased by about $300,000 per year. Now, because we are a shrinking district in some school sites, that this has kind of kept up with the pace of lowering enrollment. So we're grateful that the state allocates increase of funding each time, because for some schools it feels like the same because the enrollment is offsetting the increase. So again, we're now to the stage in land trust where we're looking at the previous fiscal or previous year, reflecting on their goals, learning lessons as we're heading into this coming testing season. And starting in February, as you visit school community councils, you'll be noticing that they'll be looking at their school data, starting to develop their plan for the coming year. So relative to the slide or the comment on the right of this slide, LEA boards receive annual trainings on reviewing school plans, what your responsibilities are. We've had Joe Kramer put those as a vector module for you. And then our responsibility as an LEA board is to approve or review and approve these plans through consent by June 1st. And so we ask our schools to get those turned in by March 25th, and it really does take about 6 weeks to work with them, making sure that we're following statute, making sure there's the full transparency, fiscal rules, et cetera, and we'll have those ready for you and by the council meeting before June 1st. Okay, so now with that update on land trust and final reports, I'll head now to Constitutional Amendment B. So this passed, and it increased the limit of annual distributions from the state school fund from 4% to 5. And this next point is of note. So even though this constitutional amendment took place a month ago, we will not see an increase of allocations till the fiscal year 27 year. That's because the distribution for fiscal year 26 was already set before this amendment had passed. But we're actually really excited about it. And as Todd and I looked and kind of projected some numbers, what would this mean? Statewide, the anticipated increase of funding would be $13.2 million. Now, each year, Granite receives about 7.8% of the land trust dollars given to schools and charters. That's because we have that commensurate amount of population. Land trust dollars aren't given according to any poverty formula, it's just straight PPA. And so if we apply that math, that 7.8% against the 13.2 million, we're poised to receive roughly an additional $1 million annually, which would increase roughly from 8.7 to 9.7 million. But again, that's calculated in today's dollars, and this won't hit until fiscal year 27. I hear rumbling. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Okay. And so if we use those numbers here, then we show what a projection would be for schools of various sizes on the right, and you could see how their allocation might increase when this amendment takes full effect, not next year, but a year from now. And that is my update board. Happy to support with any questions or, again, technical assistance as you're reviewing the final reports from last year.
Any questions?
How does it work for schools that are new, like Brockbank's opening, and they don't have actually this data to go on?
So
how does
Tim
it work
Clark and I are working very closely on that. So we are having a special election that actually they have we had 7 people opt to be on the community council. In a situation of a new school, we have 1-year openings and 2-year openings, which really are going to be 1.5 years and 2.5 years. And so the principal's working with those individuals to say, how many of you wanted to vote for a 1-year term and how many for a 2-year term? And we're advertising with a pretty wide net, hoping to catch anybody that might be coming to Brockbank. So that's Matheson Junior, then the feeder schools. And so it's taken a few months, but it's happening where Brockbank will now have a site set up that you'll see that name or that school name populate. They now have a school code, 404. And he'll be able to convene a community council, go through this process. And we're going to project what his funding will be, but we'll know final in the fall. So it's an unusual spring election and unusual terms, but we're working with the state to make sure it's done as it should. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
When will they be elected? Like, when do they?
So they're holding elections like
Right now?
within a few days, and then they'll know by the end of this month. They're having their first community council meeting this month. And then one of the action items is getting their website set up so we can publicize those meetings so board members and other patrons can know that they can attend. It's an open access meeting. Yeah.
And what data do you use? Because you have to do it on a
Yeah.
school improvement plan.
So my colleague Joan Bramble, I no longer supervise, but we're still joined at the hip. We were able to do a VLOOKUP and find all of the student ID numbers, get that to our research analysts, and she said, hey, based on the students that you have projected to come, this is their data profile. So we're still able to pull data and allow the council to make decisions based on academic needs of anticipated students. Won't be perfect, but it'll be pretty close.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Julie, did you have a question?
Yeah, that's really, it feels like it's a low amount of people who met their goals, right?
Yep.
And you kind of talked about that already, but I wonder if there's any discussion about helping them, that maybe we aren't setting the right goals.
Yes, this is an ongoing discussion in our SALT, our leadership team. We rely on their directors in their coaching visits to anchor their conversations here. We actually, this isn't as bleak as it looks because we like that they're setting stretch goals. I'd actually be more concerned if 70% met their goals, because then we could say, is it rigorous enough? So having a wide yellow band isn't a bad thing, because they are encouraging to stretch. The part of concern more is the red, right, where they didn't make any progress towards the goal that they set. That's, in my opinion, the area of focus where the L&I director is meeting with the schools. Like, what happened? You set this goal. This was a need. Your council approved it. Why didn't we make any progress? To me, that's the biggest concern. And we see that in elementary, there's about 15% of those, not schools, but goals. If we were going to look at this differently from the lens of how many schools didn't meet their goals, it would be far fewer, because schools are setting multiple academic goals, if that makes sense. But we see in junior high, they generally did set better goals and made more progress on the ones that they had set. So we see the highest amount of no progress made in elementary.
You have a good point, though. I mean, it's like 82, 83% on both, in both areas that
Right.
are showing some progress, and
Yeah.
that's actually really great. The other thing I just wanted to say that's on my mind is that with this increase from Amendment B, I know a lot of us have been on community councils and have been in that situation where it feels like, well, we don't really have any choice of where to put this land trust money because these things that we need are not being funded, so I guess we're buying this, right? So I would really love for our board to have the attitude of, we really want to protect that money and make sure that we aren't thinking, oh, but they can pay for that with land trust money, so we won't put it in our budget. I'd like us to really try to make that sacred money for our local schools as much as we possibly can, because I think it can be so valuably used there.
To your point, state law prohibits us from telling schools how they'll spend their land trust funding. It truly is a community council decision. Yeah.
And I do know that, but when you're you're down 100 Chromebooks and you're not going to get them replaced, you're like, well, okay, I guess that's where our money's going.
Very good.
So did you send us the website again? Or
Yeah,
can
so we can send you, I'm happy to send you the link. Maybe we'll do that through this, but if you were to type in this right here, this is on slide 3, or even just Google land trust site log and you'd get here. And then that would allow you to, and your access doesn't expire. You can use that login at any time throughout the year to see what's happening. right? At any stage of the land trust process. And again, that login's here and it was in your packet.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, this was fun.
I'm glad you say that. All right, JD. We're going to invite JD to come up and give us a report on our foundation.
Thank you, Luke. Good evening, Board, Superintendent. Happy to be here today. I feel like I'm going to be telling you a lot of stuff that I know a lot of you know because you're so engaged with this, so I appreciate that, but always happy to come and brag on my team at the foundation and all the things that they've been doing over the last few years and ultimately to lead us to where we are today. As you know, we've adopted our 4-pillar approach. We were excited this year because under our access to opportunity pillar, we have been doing some more stuff with family engagement and linking it to learning, some of those things. And as you know, the Tony Finau Literacy Center is one of those things. But also recently, we've started doing literacy packets with the help of the amazing team up in curriculum, designing packets to where we're teaching families how to play educational games and doing those things to support learning in the home. So those have been super exciting to be able to be a part of doing that from a foundation perspective as well. Donors have been over the moon excited about funding these things and also sending volunteer groups to assemble these packets. So it's been really, really a cool experience to be a part of that. Just jumping through and going through these access to opportunities again, those literacy that literacy stuff is a new addition to these things that we've been doing. I will highlight in the end some of our biggest accomplishments from my perspective in each of these areas. But again, and then you should have received invites to participate in Unified Sports. They have our district basketball tournament this week, just a plug for that. If you haven't been able to be a part of that at all, there's nothing better than Unified Sports, and especially when we get to have all the Granite District schools and teams in the one location. So that'll be at Cypress High this week. And then going through this is the one you all know well, but just being a part of the educator support and recognition, I know it means so much, and we get that feedback all the time to have school board members there and support these teachers as we go through. The other thing, and I'll highlight this again later, but we started the Apple grants, so the teacher grant program again. And again, that's been a huge deal for us to be able to support teachers in that way. The food assistance program, as you know, and I went over this a year ago when I did this update, this is the area that we've pivoted the very most in the foundation. And really what we did is what I call right sizing our food thing, not duplicating resources in the community. So we say we want to feed kids on weekends, in the classroom, and in emergencies. And so the rest of that stuff, we have a ton of food resources in the community that we want to connect families with and make sure that they're taking advantage of those. I think the thing that we would ever want to do from our foundation perspective, especially a foundation of our size, is duplicate resources in the community and have those resources go away when it's actually not something we could sustain long-term anyways. So when I say right sizing, that's us doing what we can to fill holes that we know are there, but not trying to do things that are already existing in our community. The Utah Food Bank, tons of different churches and other community resources put a lot of effort and money and time into the food world. And if you imagine grocery shopping for our 28,000 kids on free and reduced lunch, it would be impossible to do from a foundation our size. The last one is our student aid pillar, where we see, this is an area where we continue to see an immense increase of requests, and this comes from bus passes to backpacks, and again, we'll highlight some of that stuff here. But so in our access to opportunity, we actually just had a donor step up and offered a very generous scholarship for our absolutely incredible kid. If you remember that award the district gives at the end of the year. Now the winner of that will get a 4-year, $40,000 scholarship. So that's quite the increase from the $1,000 scholarship they've been getting in the past. But this is scheduled to be an ongoing thing for every year. So that's been a huge deal. As I said, the increase of bus passes requests, we've given out over 3,000 bus passes this year, which is already more than last year, which was double the year before that. And there's a whole bunch of factors that go into that, but we're just excited to be able to provide kids with an opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities if transportation is a barrier. And also, some of the kids are using it to get to school. Different programs at different high schools are also to work, and so these are things that we love to be able to support. As you know, and many of you participated in our educator support and recognition pillar, that new teacher store, we've gotten the new teachers continue to reach out throughout the year and just have been so grateful that they were able to get those supplies to start the school year. And I mentioned earlier the Apple Grants program. This year we'll put $280,000 in teacher grants back into our schools. So that's a huge deal. That number is looking to go up the next couple of years as we look to try to find ways to sustain that program long term, but we're super excited about that. Food assistance, huge thanks to Vivint again. They donated 50,000 student weekend meal kits to start the year, which takes a lot of pressure off us in raising funds and building kits. So that's great. And then over 400,000 snack items. So the snack kits that you all helped us build, like I said, over 400,000 of those items have been put to given to kids and into our classrooms. And so that again is a double win program for the foundation because kids get snacks and teachers don't buy them. So that's two huge deals. Student aid. This year we did over 17,000 backpacks. Remember, all those backpacks are filled with school supplies. And so this, again, is a double win because teachers aren't buying those same supplies because kids are able to start school and bring those. And then Santa Sacs, the Matt and Savannah Shaw Christmas concert, they do an award every year. It's called the Gift of Love Award. And they actually highlighted our Santa Sac program, Kathy and Sandy specifically, and awarded them at their Christmas concert with the Gift of Love Award, which was really awesome to be a part of that. Santa Sacs, like our other programs, are at an all-time high, so they distributed over 7,000 this year between elementary and secondary, so just December was wild. If I would have had hair before December, I wouldn't have had hair at the end of December, but lucky for me, it wasn't a net loss. So another area we're trying to track more closely are these volunteer hours. And as you can see, I think last school year, Ramey said we had the equivalent of 7 additional full-time employees with the number of volunteer hours that we've had. These are our volunteer hours year to date so far. And Twin Peaks is a huge reason why we're able to do that. Right now, year to date, we've put in goods, services, and donations, $4.2 million worth back into Granite Schools. We're on pace to beat the highest ever that the foundation has ever done if we continue at this pace for the year, so that's super exciting. And then the other thing I want to highlight is that we've significantly cut expenses, which means we're able, of that 4.2 million, because of the expenses that we've cut, put that much more of that money back into our students and teachers. So that's super exciting. I definitely wanted to put these logos up, and there are many other donors that have threatened my life to remain anonymous. So they are not up here. So these aren't just all the people that have supported us, but this is a handful of the ones that have given us some pretty significant gifts, whether it's in-kind donations or financial donations. But we're not able to do what we do and support the teachers and students like we do without these amazing groups of people and businesses that really come. And there's, like I said, there's so many more individuals and businesses that come to do it. These are just to highlight a few of those. And then I can't pass up the opportunity to thank you all for the Twin Peaks, because Twin Peaks truly is a game changer for the foundation. I can't state this enough. We've recently had several visitors from other education foundations, and all of them leave just in awe at the support we get from you all. So I've got to look you all in the eyes and just say thank you again, because truly we've been able to do some great things over there. But the volunteer hours and being able to accept the size of donations that we are, an example of that is Toys for Tots. If we don't have a place like Twin Peaks, we have to turn down that huge donation of toys, right, that we were able to supply all of SantaSac program with this year. So it's a huge deal for us to have a space like that and to have the support in there to make things happen. So we'll continue to beautify the place and to make it do it. And we get feedback, and you'd be surprised at how many volunteers we get there are from the community that are excited that there's something positive going on in the school building instead of just having an empty building there. So thanks again so much for that, and thanks for the opportunity to come here and highlight kind of what the foundation does and what we're up to. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. And I think, JD, you are a pretty humble guy, and I appreciate you thanking us for Twin Peaks and all the support we throw your way. But I have to say, kudos to you for righting the ship of our foundation. Because at first, a few years ago, our foundation, I would say, was almost like a ship without a rudder. We kind of lost focus on what was most important, which was kids and classrooms, and we were a little bit too heavy on the food side of things. And that was a concern for a while. So just know how much I appreciate you and your leadership at the foundation, because all the stuff that you just talked about, even with our support, doesn't happen without someone like you at the helm. So just thank you, and if you'll pass along my thanks to your staff too. You guys are doing amazing things. As I go into schools and for visits and whatnot, oftentimes the foundation comes up and how helpful, especially for a few of my schools who have the food pantries. I'll go and volunteer in them, and they just say even these little, the bags of snacks or weekend kits, and kids are lined up for them. So just, of course, SantaSacs are fun, Excel winners are fun. It's all fun, but it also is a lot of work for you. We get to do the fun part, but you get to do the work part. So
Hey, I take
appreciate
full
it.
advantage of the fun part myself, but thank you, that means a lot.
I just want to say I'm really appreciative that you mentioned the way that this is impacting the neighborhood of Twin Peaks, because, when you close a school, there's nothing that breaks your heart like knowing that you're going to take a center of a community out of a neighborhood. And when you said that, it was the first time that I thought to myself, oh my gosh, now we've put this beautiful foundation in the middle of this community, and I can see the vision of that community coming together. And I would be so excited if that was in my neighborhood like Twin Peaks is. So I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you.
Could you go back to the previous slide? I'm not sure, but in the bottom left-hand corner, is that Clark Nelson dabbing?
It sure is.
Oh, that's excellent.
Very intentional
Just
picture
wanted to point
placement.
that out. I just wanted to say, in my time with Granite School District, we've seen the foundation do some amazing things for our students, but I can say affirmatively that the last few years we have seen that increase and be elevated and executed at a higher level, and I really feel like we're on the precipice of some incredible things that will be a huge boon to our students and to our faculty and the supports that you provide. So just thank you, and a shout out for taking care of our kids the way that the foundation does.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you too, and to go into the rooms and see what they, especially with the Santa things and how they can arrange that. I just say, wow, you have so many good people that are there, and thank you for your leadership. It's a wonderful place. Appreciate it.
I'll just add to that, kudos. I think it's really impressive when you go into Twin Peaks and you see what schools are actually receiving these, and it's every part of our district. And I think that was eye-opening to me, because I on the west side, and so I think, we have the greatest needs. But when you see your maps and you see where this need is, it's throughout our whole entire district. It goes from mountain to mountain and everywhere in between, and it's really impressive how it's set up there, and it feels like a home, and it's really wonderful to visit Twin Peaks, and I hope that everyone gets that opportunity. I hope you're so good at welcoming volunteers, and even I've seen teachers up there, I've seen different people, and you've built such a great foundation up there. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm starting to get a big head, so you might want to stop.
Okay, I'll stop now.
Will you pass on, I know Karen kind of said that too, but pass on our thanks also to your team. They are incredible. I know I've talked to many teachers who before were buying treats, and some of them still do, but they buy stuff at Costco to give out to their kids who are hungry. And so those kits, I think, are invaluable for them. So thank you for that focus. Thank you for coming up with this, and I think we are on a good path, so appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you all
If
again.
you can fit your head through the door, you're excused. Just kidding. No, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for what you do. We are going to go ahead and move on to, we have an executive session scheduled. This is for the purpose of character and competence and collective bargaining. And with that, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to move to executive session for the purposes of character and competence and collective bargaining.
We have a motion and a second to move to executive session for the purpose of character and competence and collective bargaining. This is a roll call vote. Please state your name and your vote, clerk.
Clark Nelson, yes.
Karen Winder, yes?
Kristen, yes.
Connie Burgess, yes.
Kim Chandler, yes.
Julie Jackson, yes.
And Nicole McDermott, yes. All right.